Okay.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thanks, bud. Oh, while you're here, please.
Nope. Julia, Scotch.
Yeah, Scotch, Julia, now. Yeah, the target water. Okay, so I don't know if you'll be able to hear this, but this is the audio of the F-35
I've heard it. Yeah.
pilot calling 911. So in case you're living under a rock, F-35 goes down, which is the real topic that we want to talk about. F-35 goes down, pilot ejects, just like Top Gun, walks to a house and calls 911. This is the audio from that call.
Exactly what happened?
I guess we got a pilot at our house, and he says he got ejected. So he ejected from the plane. So we just see if we could get some ambulance, please.
I'm sorry, what happened?
We got a pilot in the house, and I guess he landed in my backyard, and we were trying to see if we could get a ambulance to the house, please.
We have a military jet crash. I'm the pilot. We need to get rescue rolling. I'm not sure where the airplane is. It would have crash landed somewhere. I ejected.
Okay, I understand, sir. How far did he fall?
I was at 2,000 feet. Has there been a report of an airplane crash?
I have not seen any come up yet. Okay, what part of the body was injured?
Ma'am, I'm a pilot in a military aircraft, and I ejected. So I just rode a parachute down to the ground. Can you please send an ambulance?
Yes, sir. I've already told you they're on their way. I'm just required to ask these questions while they're en route.
Okay, so I'm gonna inject some levity. We probably should have played transition music from the super morose topic we had before. I find it hilarious that the poor 9/11 dispatcher asks the military fighter pilot. Now, these guys, this is an F-35 pilot. This is the best of the best of the best pilots on planet Earth. and this poor guy is like, like, how far did you fall? And like, just completely like I have no idea what's going on. And his responses are so funny.
The only thing that would have made that 911 call better is if it started with, "Your call is very important to us. Please hold while your party is reached." Like,
seriously,
that's the only thing that would have made that better.
It's so freaking good. Iowa, cheers. Thank you so much for 63 months. That is crazy. So that is it's so funny from like just in context, out of context, an ejected fighter pilot talking to the 9/11
he
dispatcher.
Thinks he's being like extremely clear with what he's communicating, and she has zero context for anything that's going on.
Yeah,
that's a cold call to 911, right?
Yeah.
You don't get a cold if you're in whatever Fayette County, South Carolina, or whatever it is. You don't get a cold call about somebody ejecting out of an $100 million military aircraft.
Yeah,
understand, sir.
And then you're talking to the pilot. Like, that just, if you put that on the bingo card, it's never gonna, like, you're never gonna cover that square.
Yeah, I love how he says or how she says, like, how far did he fall?
Yeah, 2,000 feet.
And he's like, well, the he is me. We're now like this is in the second person. Like, I am he, and I ejected at 2,000 feet.
Yeah.
How far did he fall? Oh, the poor guy, the poor girl, everybody involved. The homeowner is like, ma'am, there's some guy landed in my yard.
Yeah, and I mean, imagine being her too. Like, she goes to family dinner like 2 days later. You're like, you guys are never gonna believe this.
Yeah.
Like, and then the audio recording shows up on national news, and she's like, "Yep, that's me."
It's so just immortalized for all time, being the "and how far did he fall" girl.
Yeah.
So okay, so
guarantee that guy's got a new call sign, by the way.
Yeah,
guarantee it.
100%. So now to go from the funny to the utterly absurd, we now have what is often referred to as colorful hick theater, which is a term used for man or woman on the street interviews on the local news of certain things that happen. There's a theory out there that there's a subset of people that when they are interviewed by the news, they want to be the next Leon Dobson or the back it up lady. Like they want to, like, how can I get on what's it called? Auto tune the news. How can I get on auto tune the news quicker? So let's be as insane as possible on this this news interview. So this gentleman was an eyewitness to the plane crashing, and I'm sure everyone has heard this by now, but I wanted to play it.
The plane as it was flying past his house and crashing nearby, but he didn't know what it was.
I'm almost October the 6th. I'll be 72 years old.
Randolph White retired from his job at the paper mill in Georgetown 10 years ago. He lives in this house with his wife in a very rural area of Williamsburg County.
Well, it's nice and quiet and peaceful, and I don't have to worry about people that, close up tight. I like space.
He loves living about 2 miles away from where he grew up. Normally, it's pretty quiet, but on Sunday afternoon,
I was in the bathroom taking a shave, and I heard a screeching, between a screech and a whistle. I said, what in the world is this? And I heard a boom. Then my whole house shook.
White says he didn't realize it was a plane at the time, so he didn't call anybody.
The first thought came to me, I said, must a meteorite come out of space or something? And I said, well, if it's an airplane, it needed to be reported. That thing was flying just too low. So yesterday evening, I said, the helicopters, I was out there walking. Choppers keep flying around. I said, well, somebody must have robbed a bank or killed some people or whatever. So I walked up there. They told me it was about the plane.
The F-35B airplane.
Okay, so that is one of the funnier things, and I think that is a genuine recreation of the sound that he heard. And
that is 1-to-1 for how it was in his head.
My favorite remix of that is that I don't have it. I didn't have it queued up here, but I'll see if I can recreate it.
Between a screech and a whistle.
I feel good. Da-na-na-na. It's so funny. The remixes of that guy. Oh my God, I love it. It's always these unifying stories that are apolitical and like unite everyone in the form of memes that I find so fascinating. The last one that I think we had was probably the sub implosion.
Yep. Yeah.
So this one, thankfully nobody was hurt. And I think at this point we can kind of say that definitively there's no.
Yeah, I'm sure the pilots got some injuries, but nothing life threatening.
Yeah. So it's one of those, like, all of the memes that come out, like, how can the military lose a whatever $70 million jet or whatever they're, or more than that. Yeah. Oh no.
Yeah. 100 million or
100 million. Yeah. They're saying 100 million here. So, okay.
Mind you.
Yeah. So what I wanted to ask you about is in your knowledge of your general aviation knowledge, how weird is this? For a plane to, I think what we're hearing is that severe turbulence knocked something loose. The plane auto ejected the pilot.
I've heard that.
Yeah, which is, F-35 has had a lot of issues. So this isn't like a completely random occurrence that the F-35 would have an issue, but from a strictly aviation perspective, what in the system the National Airspace System failed to make this plane unfindable for as long as it was?
I will hang on. I'm sending you a link to reference in just a second. So I just sent that to you. So it was low altitude. That was part of it. The radar coverage outside of the major metropolitan areas is not terrific. The counterpoint to that is that, if it's got a transponder, which it probably does obviously it has a transponder, but if they're using the transponder, which it probably does, in lower 48 operations in peacetime. Yeah, I mean, somebody probably should have been able to keep an eye on it. I had also heard that it was dash 2 of a 2-ship, which means their transponder would have been off. But I have not been able to confirm that. Truth be told, I have not done a whole lot of digging into this mishap, just because it's a funny headline, and I didn't look longer. I didn't look further than that.
Same with me. So, and even in like preparing this as a story, as something to talk about, I kind of wanted to go in this as a private pilot but enthusiast, and you as a professional pilot and enthusiast plus, like wrapping my head around something that big and loud being lost is kind of fascinating to me.
Sure. Yeah, and I mean, if you look, like he punched 80 miles. If I'm looking at your screen correctly, he punched 80 miles away from the crash site.
Yeah,
that's not that far. Like that airplane's doing, call it 300 knots, right? Like that's 5 miles a minute, 6 miles a minute.
Yeah.
That's going to cover that in a hurry. So the fact that it only flew for another 15 minutes or whatever it is, thereabouts, it's not that surprising. Especially if it was something like you have a flyable airplane that has otherwise initiated an automatic ejection, if that's what happened, or the pilot initiated ejection based upon conditions at the time of the mishap. Which, by the way, could very well and likely was the correct decision if that was a pilot initiated ejection. That's something like, I don't know if you know or not, but ejection decisions, and that's also the title of one of my favorite aviation articles of all time, which I'll send you if I haven't already. I think I have, but ejection decisions are made before you ever get into the airplane, right? Like there is specific criteria that has to be met, or that will result in an ejection. If X, then Y, right?
Yeah.
So in this case, if the pilot believes the aircraft was unflyable or unsafe to continue occupying, essentially, the safest option is to eject, right? The $100 million airplane is replaceable, right? The 10 years of combat experience or flying experience or whatever this guy has, the 4 years of training, which totals well over $1 million, that's much more difficult to replace. So it's very much the policy of the DoD to protect the pilot more than the asset, with some extremely limited exceptions that don't apply in peacetime, basically.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a weird, head-scratching mishap. It is not the first time something like this has happened. Like that article that I sent you, there was that Convair F-106 back in, I think it was 1970. Where the aircraft was uncontrollable, or the aircraft was unsafe to continue flying in a flat spin. The ejection and the force of the ejection produced enough aerodynamic delta to push the aircraft out of the flat spin, and it was appropriately trimmed that it kept flying. It landed itself in a field when it ran out of gas. Like the fact that can happen, is just. And I mean, I'll put it this way, right? Like, what's the quote from the cartoon where it's like, if I had a nickel for every time this happened, I would have 2 nickels, which isn't that much, but it's kind of weird that it's happened twice.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
was that like Adventure Time or something?
I think so.
Yeah.
Like it's the same principle, right? Like this is not that weird, but the fact that it's now happened twice where, a pilot ejects and the airplane keeps flying for a significant amount of distance, that's kind of wild.
I thought of, without, like, when I first heard about that a pilot ejected and the plane has not been found, and knowing that it was a coastal state, the first thing that I thought about was
in the water,
and not knowing like what direction or whatever. Thinking about that story of that guy who was became apoxic, and the plane was trimmed out and it just ran itself out of fuel, and he woke up. He just woke up in a field, like it had landed itself, and he just had no idea what was going on. So like that was the first thing that I thought of. And what happened actually ended up not being too far from that. It just crashed in such a remote location that just no one saw it, heard it,
Right.
knew where to go. So like knowing that, and I'm going to quote a statistic that I heard that I don't have up in front of me, but whatever. The F-35 completes its mission like 54% of the time. Like it has a terrible success rate.
That's not as far off as you think. So you're thinking of a mission readiness percentage. So that's not that far off, or that's not as bad as it sounds. Combat readiness is a political hot potato. Basically, depending upon what the goal is in the report, they will define combat readiness one way versus another to say that, okay, these aircraft are ready today, like same aircraft, same maintenance, same pilots, same everything, same supply chains. Today it's combat ready, tomorrow it's not, because they've changed the definition. So it's difficult to put much stock in those numbers.
Yeah, 55% is what the number is.
Very difficult to put stock in those numbers because, again, the definition changes so frequently to suit the needs of whatever report it is that they're trying to publish.
So just to read off
Washingtonism.
Yeah, just to read this off, its maintenance challenges negatively affected the F-35 aircraft readiness. There you go. The F-35 fleet mission capable rate, the percentage of time the aircraft can perform one of its tasked missions, was about 55% in March 2023, far below program goals. This performance was due in part to challenges with the depot and organizational maintenance. The program was behind schedule and established depot maintenance activities to conduct repairs. As a result, component repair times remain slow, with over 10,000 waiting to be repaired. 10,000. I don't know what that refers to, but so at least according to this report, which is what I had heard, was referenced to this report.
And that is the report, the GAO report. That is that's the definitive source.
Yeah. What's up, Dave?
Yeah.
So. Given kind of the odd nature of this story, not being able to find it. I mean, when you think about South Carolina versus the South China Sea or Siberia, or, you know, pick your what's the word?
Whatever combat theater you want.
Theater is what I was going to. Yeah, whatever combat theater you want. That becomes very, very bad to lose a plane.
Yes and no. Agreed. Very bad. Do not want to lose a highly classified, extremely advanced piece of technology. Not good. Would not recommend that. However, if you extrapolate this out to a real world combat scenario, right? Force on force with aircraft in the sky fighting for air superiority, you'd have AWACS up, and every single bird in the sky would, like, literally a mosquito big enough, and they're picking it up on that dish. You would have no question where this aircraft went. You have such incredible tracking capability, and that's also sidebar, sort of, kinda. I wouldn't be surprised if the DoD is saying, "Yep, we had no idea where it went," when in reality they had an actual satellite track or something like that on it all the way there. That's just classified capability that they don't want to disclose. That has happened in the past.
That happened with the aforementioned sub, where the Navy knew about it 3 days prior.
As soon as it happened.
Yeah, they heard it and they knew exactly, but they didn't want that capability to be known, which, you know, now we know that they can do that. But that's a really, really good point. It's just because they said they can't find it doesn't mean that they actually couldn't find it. Because oddly enough, too, the all of the pictures of the site are oddly devoid of any wreckage.
Yeah,
this picture has no No
There
F-35.
ain't no metal in there.
Yeah, there's not an F-35 to be seen here. So yeah, interesting. That's a really good point. And as
I'm not saying that's what happened. I am saying it's possible.
And that just hearing that possibility, again, like, you know, and I wanted to delineate me being a private pilot and enthusiast and you being an enthusiast plus and professional pilot. I know enough just to be dangerous and know, like, the idea of a plane that obvious going down and not being found is kind of concerning for those of us that fly very inconspicuous planes that, you know,
don't have $50 million catalytic systems.
yeah, like if you know, God forbid, that little Cardinal goes down in a field somewhere, you know, behind Santiago Peak without radar coverage, such as the Flight 370,
just lost a 777.
Yeah, just like it's just gone. It obviously can't happen, and it's sensational, which is why we hear about it. It's such a fascinating convergence of like that collective, like we're all in this together from the meme perspective and Homeboy with the whistle,
Sure.
and the odd nature of such a high profile military plane. I know it's stealth, you know, going missing is very fascinating.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the proof that stealth technology works, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, if anything, yeah, you should you guys better be happy we can't find this thing. It works.
Yeah. There's some MIT engineer who is over the moon right now.
That 1.7 trillion went to good use.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God. Okay.